Hello, everybody. It's a Friday afternoon, and what a perfect time to play a game. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Nigel Lowry of Devolver Digital. You may know him on Twitter as Fort Parker, and if you're not following him, it is probably the funniest game-related tweets you can get in any given day. So, Nigel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me here.
So, Shadow Warrior is what we're going to see. This is coming out next week?
Yeah, next Thursday, September 26th.
And Shadow Warrior is actually, it came out a long time ago. The original. This is, it's not a remake. What is it, a reimagining?
It's a reimagining, reboot, whatever their flavor is at the time. But yeah, it's a completely kind of reimagining of the original game.
And what was the original? It came from 3D Realms. It was right around the time of Duke Nukem.
Right.
Irreverence is what I would kind of assume is the thrust of it.
Yeah. It was a classic build engine game. So like Duke Nukem 3D or Blood, which are the cousins of Shadow Warrior, came out around the same time. It had that same irreverence. It had the foul mouth. It had the crazy action and really kind of unique setting. And that's actually why we kind of went after Shadow Warrior, wanted to remake it.
All right. Well, let's hop in. If you want to set the stage.
Sure.
Where are we?
We are at the very beginning. The character in the original game was Lo Wang, and just like the original game, you are after a sword of legendary power. You've been sent to reclaim this sword from a collector that has it. So you'll start in something that'll be identifiable to the fans of the original. That we have here is kind of this cherry blossom garden, right? And this is was one of the reasons we want to do it, this Japanese setting. So we're going to be making our way to this collector. And learn a little bit about swordplay, which is a pretty big deal here in Shadow Warrior. Yeah,
and especially there was swordplay in the original as well. That's still a challenging thing to have in a first-person game.
Absolutely.
Anyone who played Mach and X on the Dreamcast can attest to that.
So, and that was one of the things. You know, there was a sword, there was a katana in the original, and it was your traditional melee weapon. But when we talked about the game and what we want to do in the reboot, it was how can we make that more interesting? Because that was a really neat thing. You get really close to the enemies and you cut them right in half. And it was like, whoa, let's make a bigger deal about this. This is really a neat thing. So the team at Flying Wild Hog has been really working hard to kind of perfect that.
And first, Flying Wild Hog, they're not even in the U.S.
No, they're in Warsaw, Poland, the coldest place I've ever been.
I think they're going to be chill at a certain time of year.
Yeah.
What was their interest in taking this property that I think many people have forgotten about? I think most of the people who play this may not know it's even based on something.
Game, exactly. So when we were, Devolver was actually working on Serious Sam 3, a game came out called Hard Reset by a team called Flying Wild Hog, and I was like, this game is awesome. This is a really wonderful old school game. And so I contacted them, and they said, yeah, we'd love to work on a project with you. And so we said, well, we're kind of thinking about this Shadow Warrior reboot, and they were huge fans of the original. They're about our age, so they were fans of the original, and they're like, we loved it, let's give it a shot. So they've totally kind of remade it.
All right, and we are about to...
Yeah, this is you're discussing trying to buy this sword. The collector does not want to sell you a sword, so basically you see here that he's sending some of his Yakuza friends. I'm going to go ahead and skip to the part where you pull out the sword and start having a battle with him. And what we're doing here is teaching you that the katana is the most important weapon in the game. It's a melee weapon, but really we want to make it. If you power it up, if you level it up enough, it's the go-to weapon. For that very reason right there. For cutting people in half.
So, can you control the angle of the cut, or is there like 2 or 3 preset ones? How does that work?
Well, as you see, there are special moves, so I just did a 360 and cut everybody's head off in half. But if you're moving this direction or that direction, depending on how you move is how you swing. And so you can also charge your attack by holding the right mouse button for something a little more powerful, a little more aim. So it's not full control, let's say, but it's a pretty tight control over what it is you want to do, especially when you start leveling up the sword and getting these special moves.
Now, one of the challenges and what you don't see a lot of first-person sword games is because you have to get so close.
Right.
Anyone who's played a shooter knows when you're right on top of a guy, it can actually be harder to hit him than when you're 10 feet back. Right. How are you trying to kind of account for those kind of moments with the camera?
Well, so that's the balance, right? If we want to make this the most powerful weapon in the game, the most interesting thing to use, you have to have that threat of being close to these enemies. And that give and take. You can always resort to guns. There's plenty of guns in this. They're not to be dismissed at all. It's just whether or not you want to take the risk of getting really close. And with some of the bigger enemies, for example, taking off most of your life bar, because we do have life bars in this game.
Oh, you actually have a life bar. And then
can you believe it?
Is it regenerative? Or do you have to actually pick up health?
You pick up health for the most part, but this particular spell right here is something you learn and can regain a little bit of your health at a time. but there's a trade-off there too. They want to make sure it's always balanced. So if you spam your spells too much, the enemies become enraged. They use their magic back against
I mean, that's how I feel when I'm around someone.
Exactly.
Like using magic all the
Exactly.
time.
If you're going to use magic, Emma, MF, I'm going to use my magic. It's on. That's
yeah,
how,
exactly.
That's how it works.
It's like, I'm angry.
Yeah.
I'm coming at you.
Right.
So
I don't know how many times I've been walking down the street, someone's regenerating health, and I just get so pissed off.
It's like bicyclists in San Francisco. It's really
Hands off that, dude. I'm not getting that.
I'll have burning poo outside of my door.
Yeah, probably already.
So, in terms of the game and its tone, it is already, I can tell it's silly. Does it have a clear setting? I've been seeing some stuff that would kind of place it in the 80s, but is it really the 80s? Is it the 80s is it a mythical 80s?
Yeah, it's a little bit of like this mythical mashup of 80s, maybe 90s, because he does, in the intro, have a pretty huge brick phone that most of the audience probably won't recognize even as a cell phone at this point. But it's, and you know, there's a little use of Stan Bush's The Touch in the game, the song that a lot of people are familiar with. So there's a lot of 80s influences for sure.
Stan Bush's The Touch for a particular, is there an artistic intent?
Yeah, no, there was. So
okay.
Flying Wild Hog, they were like, look, for this intro, we want to have a really 80s song that he's singing along to in the very opening of the game. And so what I did is, you know, they gave me some examples. I went out and kind of looked at licensing some stuff, and believe it or not, I was able to get, their number one was Stan Bush's The Touch. And everyone loves that apparently, so I went out and found it for him.
There's something, especially for a group that obviously, when that song was popular, I probably wasn't all that available in one of the Eastern Bloc countries. That's kind of core, that's kind of street, I have to say.
Yeah, it was pretty funny to be able to talk to the guy, because he's kind of a cult hero for a lot of people. And he's still very much, he used the game in, I think, the last Transformers Transformers game as well. So luckily he was really cool, told him what we were doing, told him why we wanted to use it. It was, the character is a huge fan of his music, so that's why he kind of was like, yeah, sure, no problem, just a small license fee and got it done.
All right. So I think the other part I like about being the 80s is, as a child of the 80s, I don't know why, but like that's when the ninja became cool.
Oh yeah, Ninja Turtles and Shredder for me personally.
Well, just the ninja movies, and the Ninja Domination.
American Ninja.
Yeah. And I remember being 10 and I wasn't allowed into my other friend's ninja club because it was that. It was that big a deal, the ninjas, that they didn't want me tainting their ninja-ness.
Ninjas are notorious for not letting people in their clubs, man.
Yeah, I know. Apparently so. I was just lacking in ninja qualities. Having said that, I'm not neurotic while watching you play this game, so I think that's a plus.
Well, that's one of the things. You do feel like, the idea is if you have this katana, you need to feel like a total badass. So that's why you got the sweet ninja moves. Because everyone, there's a lot of first-person shooters. How can we do something different? Well, let's put a katana in it and make people feel like they're really, really powerful.
And also, like I can see it immediately. This is also maintaining the flavor of a late '90s shooter, which is it's moving very, very fast.
Yeah, this is as slow as it gets actually, because this is a little bit of a tutorial just to make sure you know how to use the katana and know how to use these recharging spells, and then it just rolls into just action. So. I'm actually going to play for a little bit more, then roll to some, what you're talking about, this non-stop action of a 90s shooter.
Now, do you find it, because you guys at Devolver, obviously Serious Sam, you seem to be sort of preserving a style of shooter game that really is not very common anymore.
Right.
Do you still feel that you have to change it up a little bit to make it more palatable to contemporary taste?
I think so. I think there's that people want to sometimes just remake it on a very basic level, and we don't think that's enough. You still need to bring something new to the table. If there's so many, with the advent of digital distribution, you can play all these classic shooters whenever you want.
It's not like suddenly they're behind lock and key.
Right. It's not like it used to be where you'd have to go search them out at a store or something like that. Now you can go play these. So if we want to find that nice balance, Flying Wild Hog, we discussed this with them. Find that balance of, let's have these classic elements for sure. You're going to keep all your weapons. You're going to have everything you can to possibly take on your enemy. And you're going to have pickups for health, all those kind of classic things, pretty much straightforward linear levels. I mean, there's no hiding that. It's just they look large and expansive, so that's a little different. We added the katana, that's a little different. So we're doing some things to really kind of, you got to bring something new to the table, or there's nothing worth playing for the
But
game.
then at the same time, there's still something I mean, I guess for me it is nostalgic.
Oh yeah.
Unapologetic lack of logic to everything.
Right.
It's like, you know what, you're going to collect things for no good reason.
Right. Why is there a stack of money laying around? Well, we're not going to explain that. That doesn't need to go into the narrative. We don't have to explain why there's money or why I can slice off all these dudes' heads with one swing of the sword. Like, it's just, let's relax and have fun. I mean, think, had a conversation before. Let's make sure video games, that's part of the Devolver thing. Let's make sure that they're fun too. They can be serious, they can have a serious tone, they can have a serious narrative, but in the end of the day, we want to make sure when you're playing this game, you're having a roaring good time.
Yeah, I mean, this is the equivalent of having a guitar fantasy.
Yeah.
It's the video game equivalent of that.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of influences from Kill Bill. Everyone loved, the scenes in Kill Bill with the katana where it's not, one slash wouldn't lop off the head, well, maybe. But wouldn't lop off, as doing as much damage. But you know what? Where's the fun in that? It doesn't have to be realistic necessarily. So, and why is there a big key ring right there? Like, you don't have to explain that.
Or arcade cabinets.
Yeah.
I guess it's supposed to be the mythical 80s.
Well, let's talk about these arcade cabinets. This is cross promotion,
Oh!
baby. This is what we do. We want to make sure people know about
That's
other
the Fort
games.
Parker sensibility deep inside.
This is how we make money. We
Warrior.
put our games, and in fact, you can actually put quarters into that game, and it'll make a sound effect. So we always got to make sure we're making that dollar, dude.
On that note, you are collecting money, of which. That's a very expensive arcade game.
Yeah.
What is the currency used for?
So there's 3 different resources you collect. You collect something called chi, you collect something called money, which we're all familiar with, and something that's just basically pools of blood based on your performance in battle. And those are all exchanged for upgrading weapons, upgrading your magic powers, like this right here. This is a spell that will lift everyone in front of you in the air. And the last one is to upgrade your just basic skills with the katana. Skills with the katana, and then your weapons themselves. You can actually stack onto the weapons. And
do these upgrades happen at any point during the course of the game? Or
as soon as you collect them, you can kind of jump to this upgrade menu and do everything from there. I'm not going to go to it just because I've cheated and used them all. So
I was about to say, you seem remarkably powerful for this early on in the game.
Yeah, well, that's why what I'm going to do here in a second is jump to a little further in the game so we can get some stuff.
I kind of like the idea of thinking, like, wow, Nigel is so good.
Well, I think
I'll never be as good as
everyone
him.
on this, everyone watching this should remember that I'm the best person in video games of all time. No one else can do this. I'm really, really good.
No, yeah, I mean, it's
very obvious, isn't it?
I'm just a mere sycophant in your world.
Yeah, whenever we go on our stream and we like to stream games while they're in development, I'm not going to lie, I use cheats a lot, and everyone calls me out on it. But you know what? They don't want to see you die.
That's okay. I attempted to play a game for the first time and streamed it yesterday, and I am now officially the worst game-playing journalist out there.
Yeah, well, that's
so. Yeah,
I saw the trophy on the way in, so congratulations.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is the end of the first level. So now that we've learned all the basic things with the katana, some of the magic, it throws a lot more of the enemies at you, and then the story kind of takes off from here.
So in terms of very well-known kind of classic shooters, which is it sort of modeled after? Is it more of a Quake? Is it more of a Duke Nukem? It is 3D Realm. So.
Yeah. It was based off that original one. There's the team itself, Flying Wild Hog. They came from teams that worked on Bulletstorm and worked on Painkiller. So it actually has I feel that it has a lot of influences on that. There's some scoring system to the battle like Bulletstorm. There's, there's a crossbow where you can pin people to the walls, which is very much out of Painkiller. So I think it's a lot like those. And of course, there's elements, there's areas that are just like Serious Sam when you're throwing waves and waves of enemies. And once you've powered up, it gives you the ability to kind of stave them off with a massive amount of weapons. And I'll get to those here in the next bit. Oh, this guy's upset. Hold on. There we go.
He seemed kind of cowed by your behavior.
There was something in the original that I thought was also really neat. It was a little crazier in the original game. If you dominated this particular enemy type, they would actually just pull out a shotgun, put it in their mouth, and go ahead and end it, which was pretty shocking at the time. Like, if you go play the original, which we actually made free on Steam right now, but they would basically kill themselves. And so in here, like, if you dominate a group of enemies, some of them will get down on their knees and just bash their own heads in. Some will like grab their arms and walk away because they're just freaked out and scared. So it's kind of fun when you really get stuff going and you have the katana going and have the guns going and you can dominate the enemies like that. They actually react.
That's a nice way of kind of telling the player, hey, just so you know, you're doing it right.
Right. Exactly. Now I need to get into some guns here. All right, I need to get some bigger guns here. So this is the magic. You can use that. They're mostly defensive maneuvers to push people over, lift people up, things like that. There's no offensive magic in this.
It's just a way to kind of crowd control.
Yeah, crowd control, exactly. So you can go back in and shoot off limbs. This guy's gonna get. explosive to
So
it.
obviously, one of the things that really has kind of shifted in the past few minutes is you're now kind of staying in one area for a bit as you take care of the enemies rather than have a little bit of an encounter and keep on pressing forward.
Right.
Is this more indicative of the game?
Yeah, I'd say that this particular section right here is just a little bit of an arena. There's elements that there's a lot of that in the game, and there's some sequences in which you're rushing through hallways and things like that. You might have a few more different enemy types. It's mostly not trying to get you by sheer numbers, but there are definitely areas like this. And a good amount of areas like this that just throw some sheer numbers at you and try and throw you off your game.
So, are we going to jump ahead here?
Yeah,
or?
I was going to jump to we're about to end that level anyway, so I'm going to go to the second level.
I was about to say, the sounds of screaming and whatnot, I think we're so accustomed to hearing them in games.
Yeah.
Can you give us any insight into the efforts put into to get that perfect Yakuza scream?
I can actually tell you some really deep insights, because what happened was we recorded, obviously there's professional voice actors for all the characters in the game, but then we just got ourselves and the development team, because screams are screams, so you will hear me screaming in this game. I'm one of the guys dying a horrible death, or like when you cut someone's throat and they start gurgling on blood. That's me sometimes. There's a group of us, but that's me sometimes with water in my mouth.
So you just went like old school Foley. It's like, I'm just going to put water in my mouth, I'm going to gargle, and that's...
We didn't see it was necessary to pay someone, necessarily for these screams when we're pretty good at, showing pain and misery ourselves.
Well, once again, it just lends itself to the rather humorous tone.
Right, exactly. Well, just kind of fun. It allowed us and the developer to kind of be in the game a little bit.
So, what is there, because you guys have dealt with sort of the old style shooters in this new world where we're looking for things far more deep and complex.
Right.
But what is kind of the overriding philosophy so that the game doesn't develop too much of a sense of sameness?
Yeah, I mean, that's, this, it's not like this is a genre that's new, right? This is the oldest genre of first-person shooter. So you have to find things that are, how can you keep it fresh? And one of those things is, like I said, is introducing, gameplay types and katana combat. And at the same time, a lot of those old shooters, let's take a Doom, let's take a Wolfenstein, I mean, if we want to go further back, a lot of those things, and even the early Serious Sam games, had very much the same environments the entire time. So what we had to do is make sure that when the story was being written, that the narrative brought you to a lot of different places.
Is that a robot?
Yeah, this is actually a robot from Hard Reset, the first game. They just went ahead and threw it in, and then you'll notice like the Serious Sam game arcade.
So it's like one big happy Devolver family.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It probably looks like Devolver pushed. They created all this. It was just a pretty big surprise for us when they put it in. It was pretty fun to see. Like, they said, afterwards they wanted to make sure it was cool. When we went out and asked the other developers, they loved it. I mean, there's even the ability to get the sledgehammer from Serious Sam 3 in this game.
Well, I mean, are you guys creating a situation, whether intentional or not, where you can start to look at these various franchises kind of coexisting in a similar universe that's just filled with crazy people and more monsters than we know what to do with?
Well, it's funny. We have the way we work is the developers can do whatever they want to do, and they end up liking each other's games. They meet each other. They hang with each other at events with us. Mm-hmm. So what happens is they become fans of each other's games, and there's a lot of cross promotion. The guys at Denaton Studios that did Hotline Miami, they've put people from the other developers in their games. Heck, I have a mask in that game. So once you kind of get this sense of community and sense of family that we really try to encourage at Devolver, I think everyone just finds it and looks at each other's games and like, hey, how cool would it be to include some of that in my game? So it's been.
No, it's nice. I get it.
Yeah, it's
Devolver's a family that just happens to make hyper-violent games.
Yeah, not all of them are hyper-violent.
Not all of them. Not all of them.
They're just regular violent ones too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the hyper. I mean, that's reserved for special moments. We have a question from our chat.
All right.
This is from Relapse 720, and I guess they're telling me, ask him about the bunny Easter egg.
Oh, okay. So if that's from fans of the original game, we'll remember that there was a lot of bunnies, just random little bunnies crawling around. And so that was one of the things, of course, we had to keep in this game. So you'll see bunny rabbits, and occasionally if two bunny rabbits get together, like in the real world, this is ultra realistic, they will start humping like bunnies. And
really? I thought bunnies hump like dogs.
Well, that's a common misconception.
Whoa, this is going to change my entire Friday night.
Yeah. And so they go at it. You can kind of run into the change your Friday nights. You'll run into them now and then, and they're engaging in bunny lovemaking. The other part is, and this has been shown already, so I don't have a problem giving it away. You can kill these bunnies. You can kill these poor little bunnies, and if you kill the wrong one, they actually bolt the lightning hits them, they turn black, and they turn into basically the evil bunny from Monty Python. They just come at you relentlessly until you die.
Are they still the size of a bunny?
Still the size of a bunny. In fact, I'll try and kill a few here in a bit.
I was going to say, the idea of trying to hit a bunny with a katana presents challenges.
That's we probably switch to the rocket launcher at that point. Just take care of business.
Swat that fly with that bazooka.
Yeah.
So, one thing I have yet to ask you, just because it wasn't surprising due to the spirit of the game, but the monsters and, nastiness that suddenly emerged after you bought the sword. What transpires to open the gates of hell?
So what this is going back to the original as well. You find out in the original game that your employer Zilla has made a deal with the devil, basically made a deal with these shadow beasts to come and take over. Exchange.
Haven't we all? At one time or another?
Right. Like that's probably what I'm kind of working on for myself this weekend. But what happens in this game is something similar. He invites some shadow beast in the world, makes a deal to become the most powerful human, and that's why you'll find yourself fighting not only these beasts but then his henchmen. Oh, here's some bunnies.
Hey, it's bunnies.
Probably. I'm not sure they're going to make love. They just ran into a heart there. Oh, there we go. Here's some bunny.
They ran into a heart.
Bunny love making, and then you have to do that and make that one lonely.
Anything else I can know about?
So that was in the original. Fans of the original game will definitely appreciate that.
That is just demented.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hey,
and actually, in kind of an awesome way.
It's certainly something you're not going to find in other first-person shooters. I'll put it that way.
You know what?
Some people.
That's the word I'm looking to. It's committed.
Yeah, it's committed. Call of Duty.
This game is committed to being what it is.
Call of Duty can have their dogs in armor. We're going to have our bunnies having sex. That's just how it is. We're taking that side of the road.
I'm slowly realizing that maybe one of the biggest issues in games is the amount of humans. And that if we focus more on dogs and bunnies.
Right. And winged demon vultures, we'd all be better people. So this setting I'm just kind of running through. This is like I was talking about earlier. Becomes an arena setting where you basically have a lot of enemies at you, and you dispatch. And the strategy, like these old school shooters, is using the right weapons at the right time. So if I want to switch, that crossbow will pin people to the wall, but I can also fire a bolt and clear a crowd here. Oh, there we go. And so it's just like an old school shooter. You need to pick the right weapon for you, if that's okay with you.
Yes, by all means. Oh, let's take a look. We have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Will this ever hit consoles?
Yeah, PC first, because that's kind of what it's built for, is a PC franchise. But the reception has been fantastic. It's gone very well so far. We've already started exploring PS4 for sure, and we're going to take a look at Xbox One as well. But the team is really excited to bring this to console as well.
Cool. And then another gentleman here is asking, and I don't know if you agree with the sentiment, any particular reason for the more serious narrative? I guess maybe you could say this is more serious than the original Shadow Warrior, but...
I'm not sure that I would call it like more serious. The original Shadow Warrior story was relatively basic. I think what they've done here is made something, that if you're going to make a 10-hour game, you need to make sure you have a reason for someone to want to listen to what this story is going on. You want to have a narrative that's somewhat entertaining, right? And something that's going to, keep people engaged. So, and the humor is all very much still there. There's still one-liners. There's still ridiculous things that happen. You're going to run into NPCs that are basically competing with you to get this sword. There's twin assassins called the Hit Girls, and there's just there's funny banter between everybody. So I wouldn't call it necessarily more serious. I just think it's definitely more fleshed out story.
Right. It's not just kind of a one note.
Yeah, it's not telling you I'm going to go here for no reason. Like there's a reason why you're going from certain levels to certain levels.
Albeit a strange reason.
Yeah. I'm not going to say. Yeah, this isn't like the Tale of Two Cities.
No one sat around for too long going, what is his motivation
right.
here?
This is also.
Hey, did you tear the heart out?
Yeah, there's also. That's what I was going to say. If we want to talk about what's serious and what's not, like you're able to grab hearts from your enemies and then squeeze them, and then they all just go like that. So
wow.
There's definitely, and there's also, you can rip the heads off. Yeah, that's a head. That's a head from a larger enemy you get in the game, and it just spews pure disaster. So it's great. So this
is it pure disaster or urine? It could be disastrous.
It depends on what your take on urine is. I think a lot of people consider that pure disaster if you got sprayed out of a demon head. But yeah, there's those are actually from the original game as well. And yes, to answer the question before it comes, you can complete the game with just the katana because it does have this projectile attack here.
Nice.
So you're able. No, there's only I'm using Akimbo Uzis right now. That's the only one you have there. There is not. That's it's funny. So we've already discussed with Flying Wild Hog a little bit about what can we do, because like I said, everyone's really liking this so far when we show it. What can we do in a sequel? And one of the ideas was, of course, 2 katanas. The other one, my favorite one, was nunchucks. I think that'd be super sweet to have nunchucks in a first-person shooter.
How about katana hats?
Katana hats, then we could sell
Like, so I can just like, because I talk with my hands, I move my head a lot. I can do a lot of damage with katana hats.
I think most people could do plenty. If you had a katana hat, there's no one getting in your way. There's no one going to mess with someone with a katana hat.
I probably can go to the front of the line at Starbucks.
Yeah, and you can probably ride all the rides at Six Flags. There's not a whole lot you can't do while wearing katanas on a hat.
Yeah, I think, just let Flying Wild Hog know.
I'll do that.
Katana hats.
We'll credit you when katana hats are basically the next big thing, when they're next Lancer, like in Gears of War.
I mean, you're just going to go to, Urban Outfitters, and you'll be like, katana hats.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
That's fine.
And we'll just wait for those lawsuits to roll in.
Let's see. Is there an aim down sights function to the game, or is it a conscious nod to the older FPSs that you really are just kind of shooting from the hip?
So there's mostly shooting from the hip, but you can look down sight. Honestly, there's no particular reason to do it in this game. They put it in there because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Let's just go ahead and put down sights if you want to. But there's no zoom, there's no sniper. There's nobody,
You don't really want to stay still for all that long.
Yeah, there's no point to exactly staying still. Like, you've got demons with shields, you've got this guy with a grappling hook. I mean, you need to keep moving.
So which level are we on?
This is actually about halfway through the game.
Okay.
We've jumped ahead.
We really have seen a change in the enemies.
Yeah, the enemies have started to upgrade. I mean, they're starting to use, like, these guys, right now I blew away his, but you'll see shields, like, it becomes a little more complicated. So we're layering on. You asked earlier, how do you keep it in string? You got to layer on strategy to these enemies. So some enemies will have shields. Some of them will have, they'll charge at you and detonate on impact. Some of them, like this guy over here, is more of a general. So if you don't kill him, he'll actually start enraging or basically plussing up, powering up the enemies around him. Ooh, there goes his head. So I can pick that up, and then I can use that.
Now you have the magic head of hurt.
Yeah. And then there's another enemy type later on that if you don't kill him, he basically will respawn these enemies. So he'll bring them from through the dead. He's a warlock. So that's how you kind of you got to keep a first-person shooter, a traditional kind of classic first-person shooter like this interesting by making sure that you have, there's progression to the enemies.
Well, and then also between the heart and the head, I don't know how many other body parts become kind of effective tools.
Those are the only two right now.
But you sort of have a fun little loop going, depending on who you're killing first, how you're able to move on to the other enemies.
Right, and that's, it's a lot of people look at this style of shooter, which is, more of traditional, and say, oh, it looks pretty simple. You point and shoot. But that's not really it, because these are usually much harder. And if you're not if you're not planning your strategy out on which enemies to take out when, it gets a lot harder for you. That's when you start dying.
Well, also, I mean, I think people think that there's something very, for lack of a better word, rudimentary. Okay, you have space, you put enemies here.
Right.
But because it's so gameplay focused.
Yeah.
I mean, that sense of balancing and how everything's going to work out in the potentials, depending on who you kill first.
Exactly.
I mean, there's actually quite a bit of technique that has to go into that.
Talking to I spent a lot of time, obviously, with coaching the folks behind the Serious Sam series, and that's a lot of what they talk about. Is it's not about, hey, let's create an area and let's throw a bunch of enemies in there, because that's fun for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So how can we make sure we're leading people along, making sure that they're discovering things still, and that every encounter is interesting. For example, like this is the first time you're going to encounter this enemy who has two katanas, like someone requested earlier. And this is an enemy that will I killed her really fast, but she'll transport around. She's actually hard to keep tabs on. So you need to constantly introduce new things to keep it fresh.
Okay, we have a question here. This is one that I have the same question. It's from C. Fisher, 2833. I absolutely loved Hard Reset. Easily one of the most underrated games of this generation.
Agreed.
Will this be as difficult as Hard Reset was? And that game definitely...
that was hard.
I was getting schooled.
Well, what I think, the team, we discussed that. One of the big things we wanted to talk to them about, as we talk to any developer, what did you learn from your first effort in their case? And one of the things was they want to keep it difficult, but they could also break it out into 4 difficulty levels here. So there's 4 different difficulties in Shadow Warrior. So that means you can, if you're down for that challenge of Hard Reset, you can play this in the most difficult setting. There's also easy ones that'll kind of make it a little easier to do. The other difference I think between Hard Reset and this one is the variety, because Hard Reset basically had different levels, 2 guns, and that had 2 different levels of power that you can power up. This one gives you a lot more options, which is something you take for something like Serious Sam. You need to have different tools for the job. Right
you
now,
have to have that latitude.
I'm getting attacked from below and above. So you need to figure out, like, if you only had 2 guns to choose from,
And you had the wrong gun.
Yeah, I had the wrong gun out. So I'm going to take these guys out because I need to start getting rid of bodies real quick because there's too many guys hitting me at once, and that's why you see my energy kind of going down.
And let's remind everyone that while you were overpowered because you were using some cheats in the beginning,
exactly.
You seem to have now
lost that advantage. I'm also, like you, maybe not the best at video games according to people that watch me play.
You're selling yourself short, the greatest video game player ever.
I think that'll be disproven here pretty quickly.
So another thing I was noticing too, this is from our viewer Xeno Sentience. I love the gun designs here. Can you talk a little about those? What I'm noticing is they're somewhat familiar, but obviously very unique to this game. But they're very reminiscent of once again, a more classic era of shooters.
Yeah, even looking at, going back to the original game, they had something called the riot gun, which is a 4-barrel shotgun. So this is what this is right here. That's what Flying Wild Hog wanted to bring back. But the difference is, in this game, you will start with it as a 2-barrel shotgun and work your way up to it as you unlock things. I'm going to skip ahead while I'm talking about this. So the designs, they're very meticulous. You'll watch everything happen. You'll watch the shotgun. Everything has a mechanic to it. So when it fires, a lot of different moving parts happen, which makes it different from your normal 2-barreled shotgun. When you pull back the crossbow, everything winds. Every little gear turns. It's kind of interesting to watch. So they took a lot of time to make sure that these weapons weren't just, here's your basic crossbow, here's your basic shotgun, here's your basic rocket launcher. They wanted mechanics to it. They wanted to move. They wanted to change. And those little things like that, I think, help set it apart from your other basic old school shooters. It's just little touches like that. I mean, you can even reload the katana where you swipe the blood off the.
I mean, I don't want to damn it with fake praise, but it's kind of. I like that kind of boyish attention.
Right.
You know, that kind of juvenile fetishization of these things that are so cool and like you can imagine them because you can't have them in real life.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's, this, like you said, the attention to detail, these little things that you can never do, like, you never want to do, it can be realized in this, and everything, they want to make sure if you're going to feel cool, that feel like a ninja badass, you can swipe the blood off your blade like that. And then that little thing, I think, makes a world of difference.
Y2 Geriath, I believe it is, he says, how did they decide on the right art style after seeing the original?
That's a really cool question. And talking to the creative director, I think the thought was there's in the world of first-person shooters, I think a lot of people, are probably pretty sick of the pretty bland grays and browns. So every environment that you kind of go to, one of the big things they wanted to do was make sure there was different colors in it. And in fact, I'm saying that during a rainstorm, this is probably the dullest color-wise environment in the game. But you saw in the opening thing, they wanted to have these pink cherry blossoms. You don't see that, in a hardcore first-person shooter, right?
Right.
And so they wanted to make sure the color style, the color schemes are all varied. You have these really deep green bamboo forests. You have this blue hue of this typhoon going on. Later on after this, you're in this stark white winter fortress area. So they wanted to make sure color was a big part of the game. And then from a specific design standpoint, I think they just well, sorry, this is pretty cool. They wanted to make sure there was Asian influence. They did a lot of research to have the architecture. Early on you saw some of these Japanese temples, and even the enemies reflect traditional Japanese creatures or Japanese demons. The bosses themselves all look like that. Those, I'm not going to show any today because spoilers, but all the bosses are these oversized, colossal, just shogun-looking Japanese demons. So they always looked at kind of Japanese art, Japanese design, and more of the mythology that helped design a lot of these things. Which that is actually a pretty big departure from the original. The original had just this weird, conglomeration, I guess if you want to call it, of different enemy types. And so this one, they kind of wanted to have something thematic to it.
Sinistar 109, I think I might know the answer to this. Are there any quieter moments where you can kill stealthily before being detected?
The answer, as you might have guessed, is no. This is
really?
Yeah. There's no.
Get out of here.
As I use the term ninja a little too loosely here. I wouldn't call Lo Wang a ninja. He's got the katana, but at no point do you ever sneak up on anybody. I think in the game. And you know what? And that's a conscious decision too. It was like, look, if you're going to go stealth, you better do it right. You need to do if you're going to do stealth, you need to go all in with it, and that's not what this game was about. So.
I mean, actually, I think about Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
You know, it has one brief stealth moment where
Right.
it's like, I wasn't, well, hold on.
Right.
You know, I came here for the steak, and you're trying to give
Right.
me the salad.
Yeah, you're trying to sell me on something else.
That's a horrible analogy, and I really am apologetic I did that in front of you.
No, it's okay, but it makes the
reaching.
point. If you want to change the gameplay up, you have to have a reason to do it, and I think you have to be able to do it well, or then it just comes off of you trying to add gameplay in for a marketing bullet point or something, you know?
So we have another question from C. Fisher 2083. Is this the same engine from Hard Reset?
Yeah, it's the Roadhog engine, which is Flying Wild Hog's proprietary engine. It's been modified. You know, it's been basically 2-3 years since they were developing that game. So it's certainly more powerful, and it's been designed with higher PC and next gen specs in mind. But at its base, it's the same engine.
And AZ, and there's a series of numbers, and my eyesight's just not good enough to read them on this tiny screen.
Awesome.
Is the sticky bomb back?
No, the sticky bomb was, that was one of those things that, was a favorite too. Funny enough, I'm using what might be the equivalent of it. The crossbow, you can actually fire an explosive tip bullet that sticks to them. Now it's flaming off of them like that, and what you can do is set that off whenever you want. So it's pretty similar to the sticky bomb in that sense. You can hit a guy in the back of the crowd with this, stick it to his body, and as he runs through the crowd, boom.
And DV Bing One. Also, are the anime women back? You know the ones.
I do know the ones, and this is something I can't give away here, but folks looking for some funny things with anime girls from the original will definitely be happy, but I will warn you, it's a pretty big twist. They wanted to make a big twist on what that is. So.
All right, I think that's a nice.
Yeah.
You've answered it and intrigued.
I think you'll be
All
happy.
at the same
I'll just say
time.
that.
And of course, the game isn't out, so there's one question everyone has to ask: will there be DLC?
Of course. Game's not even out and everyone wants DLC. Well, that's a good sign, I guess. We've discussed how we can continue Lo Wang's adventure. I like saying Lo Wang's adventure, by the way. But continuous adventure. So right now, there's no specific DLC plan, but there is plans for how we can kind of expand upon the game in some manner.
I think you would like to hear this. That goddamn shotgun is so epic.
Yeah.
Says one person.
Yeah,
and I have to concur.
If we can go ahead and write that down, if we had a box, we'd put it on that box, but we're digital only.
I think one of the things of this era of games is how important shotguns were to me.
Totally.
That I still think to this day that I judge most shooters on the satisfying quality of their shotguns.
Yeah, I agree. Let me switch to said shot. Well, this is probably a poor time to choose it, but I'll
I was about to say, that's what I would be using in this scenario anyway.
Yeah. This is, it's awesome because like the original, you can shoot one barrel at a time, right? Which does plenty of damage. But if you shoot, you can shoot 4 barrels at a time, which liquefies anything that's in front of it. So yeah, I will agree with the epic badassness of this shotgun for sure. Except for the distance.
Just that thick, satisfying sound, and always that perfect trade-off. Where
totally,
as long as I hit, I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
If I miss, given how long it's going to take to get to the next shot out,
that's exactly
I really have to, think about my actions.
Shotguns are awesome, and in games where they pay off, you feel that feeling of like that kickback, like you felt like you did something, and everyone gets really happy with it. It's the wimpy shotguns no one likes, and those games are destined to fail.
So I think our viewer JFPSY. He's asking you to prognosticate.
Okay.
Do you think that maybe with games like this, Hard Reset, Serious Sam, Rise of the Triad, etc., that classic hardcore FPSs might be making a comeback? Will they ever become more mainstream again?
I say the comeback is here. The comeback's been happening, as you just listed off a few. Like, there's quite a few games in this genre, they're back. Our question is, if the question about will they overcome or will they become just as big, I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely a smaller audience than your Call of Duties of the world, and because they're built to do something a little different. I mean, they're different experiences for sure. They're first-person shooters, but they're just different experiences overall. I don't know if they're going to be, as big or anything like that, but I don't think they necessarily do. The people that want to play them will play them.
Do you think because of the rise of digital distribution when it comes to PC games that is what allowed for the resurgence, or at least this return in this form?
I think in a broader scope, it allows people to take more risks. Meaning you don't have to make a game that's going to go on a Walmart shelf that needs to sell 1 million copies. With digital distribution, you can make games, and this is what a lot of what the indie game scene is about right now. It allows you to take more risky games or do games that aren't necessarily for a broad audience, but they're still very profitable and can be given out to the people, distributed really easily. So I think that definitely plays a part in why we're doing games like Shadow Warrior, because we believe in them, but there's also the ability to get these out without having a lot of those barriers.
I mean, is this also one of the reasons why there was such a long period of time between Serious Sam 2 and Serious Sam 3? I mean, that was almost a decade. I think.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, you're right. It was almost a decade. That's because before Devolver or other publishers of our size existed, you had to sell a game, and the large publishers, wanted to see how it was going to make them $20 million. And if you didn't have a way to show that you can sell $20 million worth of merchandise, then it's going to be hard to greenlight. Well, with us, it's very easy to look at this. We know what the audience is, and we know that there's an audience out there, and we don't have to wait for retail to bless it, or a larger publisher to help us bring it to retail. We can bring this right to the people that want to buy it, and with things like pre-order or early access, you can start generating kind of sales and getting people interested in it, pretty early on in the process.
And word of mouth, I mean, obviously word of mouth is so essential to games of this type. I mean, have you seen sort of changes in communities and behavior where stuff like this can be discovered? I mean, that's always where your biggest challenge is going to be. How do you get word out when you don't have the retailer that's kind of advocating on your behalf?
Well, that's a lot of what we do as a company, as Devolver does, is we work with smaller teams that don't have the resources and honestly don't have the the desire to get out there and do all the PR that's sometimes required, because heck, they want to work on the game, right? So, that's a lot of what we come into play. We work with our teams to make sure, oh, I'm out of bullets. This is a huge problem. There we go. And so we make sure that a game like Shadow Warrior, in the grand scheme of things, is still a smaller game, but we want to make sure we get that out to the audiences. Come on shows like this and show people that, yes, there are things different from your Call of Duties and your Maddens and everything like that, and Assassin's Creed. Not that there's anything wrong. I play all of those games.
Right.
But it's just the idea that there's other things out there. And I think Steam does a really good job of giving those things a storefront, a place to be sold.
Well, also, I've always found this type of game, there are times where I want this. I love I love my rich games, so sometimes it's like I just need that immediate feedback of things.
Right.
So we've been playing this thing for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we've done quite well.
Great.
I don't want to push you any further.
I've killed a lot of demons.
Killed
so
a lot of things. So obviously, for the people that are watching and the people that might be watching later, once again, when is the game available? How much will it be?
The game is $40. It is available September 26th, which is next Thursday, at least from today. So September 26th, you can pre-order now, and it's 15% off.
All right, well, that sounds like a very good deal. Nigel, thank you so much for coming by. Next time, you don't even have to bring a game.
All right, I dig it. We'll just talk. I like it.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Once again, a wonderful thank you to Nigel Lowery and the folks at Devolver Digital, as well as obviously the guys behind Shadow Warrior out there in Poland who are still toiling away until the final hours. We will be doing these things frequently, and if you want to see another example, go check out Anthony and me playing Outlast and screaming like little girls. And of course, we'll be doing it again with Anthony next Thursday, and there'll be a lot more of this to come. Just always check back. Thank you. Bye-bye.